Hi, Tony Ferguson, Director of Transformation Strategy. I'm here today to talk about preparing to come back to the office. What will that look like? Well, there's a lot of uncertainty. We've now seen that maybe there's a vaccine. We all hope this will work. But when we talk about network security and trying to secure our users in our enterprise, we all saw what happened back in March when a lot of people had to go home and IT departments struggled with VPNs and really trying to ensure that everyone was secure. And really over that time, we've seen an increase in attack surface. We've seen many attacks this year. And really today, I'm really here to talk about SASE, the Zero Trust Network Access, and these technologies and how can this enable your business for better user experience, better security, but also reducing cost. So let's start. As I said, we don't know what the wave's going to look like, whether we're going to have a big wave and then everyone's going to be in full lockdown and we're all at home. And we're not really sure whether this will be a slow burner, whether maybe we will have some people in the office, 50%, maybe 50% at home. But there are some problems that we need to address when you go home, when you come back in the office. Is that device dirty? Were you infected when you were at home? But if we think about where will this end up? Where will we be in a few years' time? We can look at studies and see that many organizations believe that we are going to be more flexible. We're going to be able to allow more people to work from home. And you can see by this chart here that often it's not going to be about whether we're in the office or at home or at the cafe or at the beach, wherever. We should be able to work from anywhere. So really the future should be a hybrid workplace. And that's what we're seeing. Most organizations are preparing to have a hybrid workforce. So now we need to think, how do we now secure this new world where my users aren't in the corporate office? So if we think about what happened back in March, all our users were in the office. Then slowly, as the curve picked up, more and more people went home. How did they access the information back in the office? Most likely VPN. They'd overloaded the VPN in many companies. How were they accessing the internet? Was that going back through the data center and out to the internet? What was the user experience? And you know, at the moment, I think many of us are working from home still. And as I said, what happens when those people go back to the office? Did they have the same security policies that we had in place in the corporate office they had at home? Maybe not. Maybe they did get infected. What happens when they bring that infected device back on the corporate network? And then that infection moves laterally to your data center. When you're on VPN, you're putting that user on the corporate network. The malware can also move laterally across the VPN. Did that user have the VPN on or off? And those types of things. Were we able to deploy security updates to the user when they're at home? But really to talk about architecture and getting back to, how do we solve this problem? We can look at some industry standards, and a couple of these standards one is SASE and the other is Zero Trust Network Access. Let's start with that SASE. So SASE is really about a lightweight branch, moving the hard work to cloud. And it's really about making sure you do the security and the policy as close as possible to your destination where the applications are, or as close as to the user. And why is that? Why is SASE doing it this way? Why is it called the edge? Why does it have that word in there? That's because it is about the speed of light and latency. If you've ever done any networking, you'll know that latency will kill application performance. So it's not really the best way to put someone on a VPN, send them all the way back to the office, then send them out to the cloud. And the other thing that is really important with SASE is that you need to break open SSL. We see, 85, 90% of the internet traffic is now encrypted, and you need to break that open to see the attacks. And you can't stop what you can't see. So that's also, and you need to do that at scale. So that's one part for the SASE part. The zero trust network access is more about hiding your applications, reducing the attack surface, whether that's inside the corporate network or your internet exposed attack surface. And this is about authenticating the user before allowing them to connect. It is based around software-defined perimeter, and I like to call it black cloud. But you can have a look at this. There's some great resources on Cloud Security Alliance, CSA. But it is a replacement for VPN. And one of the nice things about it is it doesn't expose your network. You don't need to put the user on your network anymore. And that means you can connect users securely to applications, and only those applications by policy, without putting them actually on the network. So for example, if I'm sitting at home and I do an Nmap and I try to scan the network, I don't see anything. Everything is dark. Yeah. And that last piece, that's really important, right? The authentication is always done before you do the connection. And that's important for a number of reasons, but we know who the user is. We do strong authentication. Zscaler we consume. We use your identity provider. We federate. We consume that identity, turn it into policy. And then once we know who you are and what applications you want to access, then we allow you to connect. And another thing Gartner talks about is really the center of the world, this inbound and outbound security stack that you've built over the last 25 years. If you put this in the middle of your universe and you send everyone back there, this will really inhibit transformation, digital transformation, moving towards the cloud. So you really need to think about, how do I do security in this new world when my applications are moving to cloud, my users are working from anywhere? Where should that security layer be? So just dive into SASE again. SASE really enables that transformation. It allows for speed and agility that you can move applications around. You don't have to send everything back into your data center. The other part is you can do inspection, and you want to do inspection as close as possible to your Office 365. That's why here at Zscaler, we partner and pair directly with Microsoft. Our data centers are in the same place as Microsoft. Why? Because we want to get you there. We want to get the user the fastest possible way from our cloud to that application they use. And really, we need to rethink this whole architecture. We cannot just get our old appliances, our next generation firewalls, virtualize them, put them in the cloud, and think it's going to work. It's a little bit like getting a lot of DVD players, putting those in the cloud, and then trying to call that Netflix. You need an architected platform that is multi-tenanted, that is proxy-based to break open the SSL. Do this at scale and make sure that it's distributed. Zscaler has the largest distributed security cloud in the world. So it really is about bringing that network as a service and security as a service together. That's what SASE is about. You bring those together and we deliver that for you. So you don't need to worry about securing the network and having those appliances and patching them and replacing them. So it really lifts that burden off the enterprise and off these organizations. So you can focus on the things that are important for your business. As I said, it pushes that security to the edge. And another important piece here is context. Context has to be there. So we need to know who the user is, what application are they accessing, and then have a policy to allow that. So here's another good paper, Zero Trust Network Access. I don't have time to go into all the details here, but as I was saying before, it's really about doing the authentication before connecting, and Zscaler Private Access is all about getting users to their private applications, whether those applications are in the cloud, whether they're on-prem. It is all about securely getting that connectivity. But one of the important things about Zero Trust Network Access is the attack surface. By removing the attack surface, this is really important to stop breaches, to stop that ransomware attack on your company. For example, remote desktop. Having that open on the internet, we see many companies that have this open. These sorts of services should be behind Zero Trust Network Access, not exposed to the internet, but only exposed to the users and only exposed when they have authenticated. So just to repeat, the applications go dark. That means you can't find them. You can try Nmap, but you won't see anything. And I always say, you can't attack what you can't see. The cloud, if you have applications and infrastructure as a service, like Google, Azure, AWS, we do an outbound connection. That means that you don't have to expose anything. So that means these app connectors sit in your network and they do an outbound towards Zscaler Cloud. The user also does an outbound connectivity. So there's nothing exposed on the user side either. And really you gain access to all these applications without being actually on the network. And that's really key. So Zero Trust Exchange. Let's talk about Zscaler's platform. So what makes up this platform? If you take security as a service and network as a service, as before, if you put these together, this is where you end up with SASE, right? The Secure Access Service Edge. But it gets more interesting because when you overlay Zero Trust onto this, if you look at and you say, I take Zero Trust and security as a service, that's really about secure internet access. That's more about Zscaler Internet Access, where we secure the user towards the SASE applications and internet. If you take Zero Trust and network as a service, that's where ZTNA sits. That's the Zero Trust Network Access. This is the making the applications go dark. But what if I put it all together? Security as a service, network as a service, and Zero Trust. If I put this all together, this is where the magic happens. This is where you get the Zero Trust Exchange. This is where you get Zscaler's platform, purposely built, 150 data centers globally, to secure your users, your applications, no matter where they are. So at Zscaler, we don't care about the network, the underlying network. Don't secure it. You can see on here, factories, whether it's a factory, whether it's a user sitting at home, whether it's customers that need to access some of your resources, whether you have on-prem applications, whether these are in the cloud. For us, we don't care. We will do this connectivity for you and make sure it's secure. So there's 5 main principles to the Zero Trust architecture. And that is the first one, the network. Don't try to secure it. At Zscaler, we don't believe in securing the network. If you think about the internet, you don't control the internet. And that's where everyone's sitting at the moment, on the internet, because they're at home. So Zscaler is an overlay that sits on top. So you have trust in this overlay. The other thing is we don't look at applications as network segments. We look at them as destinations. And this is important because we can create policy that's more meaningful around the application. The other part is really about connecting users to the app and not putting them on that network. So being more application centric, thinking about who are my users, which applications do they need to access, and creating that application-centric policy. The fourth part's more about the attack surface. As I said before, reducing the attack surface is important, not only on the internet, but also on your data center. Having a VPN into your data center, exposing all your applications is not a good idea. And the last piece is more about the SASE architecture, about having that policy that follows that user no matter where they are. So if I'm at home, I have the same security, same posture as I would be in the office. This means the internet is becoming the new corporate office. And this is where all the users are ending. So that means that my corporate office, should I secure my access layer? No, you should just have guest Wi-Fi and think about securing the device, the user, and having them connect to their applications. So what's driving this? Why are we talking about the internet being the new corporate network? Well, there's two parts to it. So firstly, the applications have moved, yeah? So applications have moved to cloud. This has driven security transformation. And what I mean by security transformation is I mean that we don't want to have that security stack in our data center with an inbound and outbound stack. We're moving to a more zero trust model, a software defined model where we use software defined perimeter and machine learning and leverage the cloud for that intelligence. And that's network performance, right? The network performance is important. Look at 5G coming around the corner. We'll all have high-speed internet in our pockets. And that network transformation is really moving from that hub and spoke where we had MPLS, moving towards really having an internet connected office. And thinking about, do I need a corporate access layer anymore? Maybe we just will have 5G in the future. But we need to start thinking about, why are we securing all of this network? Shouldn't we be just securing the things we care about? So there's four main pillars or areas of this Zscaler Zero Trust Exchange. The first one's around secure internet access. So this is really about, protecting traffic from you to the internet, to your SASE applications, doing all the CASB controls. We partner with Microsoft, doing sandbox, which is vitally important, holding that file in our cloud, detonating it, making sure it's safe before we deliver it to the user. We partner with SD-WAN providers to get that traffic to our cloud. As I said, we partner with Microsoft for Office 365, so we can get that traffic there. On the secure private access, this is more about getting users to private applications, whether that's infrastructure as a service or whether that is a legacy data center that I have some legacy applications. And part of this also is about business to business, getting my business partners into those applications. Like I have consultants and they may need one application. So I can make a granular policy just to allow them to that one application. And of course, this is all zero trust. The two new areas, and last year we released Zscaler Digital Experience. This is about when you look at the landscape now and we have users on the internet, how can we ensure that those users at home have good performance? What happens when they call the help desk and say, hey, it's really slow? Is that because their Wi-Fi is too far away from their laptop? Is it because their internet is bad because there's too many people? Is it because the application in the cloud is having some problems? So that's where we can identify. We sit in the middle between that user and that application. We have software on that endpoint where we can make synthetic calls to the application and measure that latency, if there's any packet loss, and all those types of network results we can look at and say, oh, there is a problem. It's the Wi-Fi and it's on your home network. Or there's an outage. It's Microsoft and it's only in this region, because we see the whole cloud. We see all the applications. The last part is really about workloads. How do I secure the workloads now in the cloud? My SASE applications. What if an admin misconfigured my S3 bucket? So looking for those misconfigurations and ensure that your workloads are protected. That's our cloud security posture management tools. And one of the most exciting parts is a new acquisition of a company that is looking at how to protect workloads and not doing workload protection on the actual device and the IP, but going down to the process level, turning that process into identity, using machine learning to create meaningful policy from the traffic flows we've seen. And that's really important to understand. What are my traffic flows within my data center? How can I actually do zero trust within my data center? There are a lot of other platforms out there, but none of them really go down to the detail of the process level and use machine learning to really capture that policy and build it out. So as I said, 150 data centers strategically placed as close as possible to all the large exchanges and pairing with the application providers. And really it is about simplifying this, simplifying your point products, removing those, saving the cost on that, moving towards a more simplistic approach that is going to give your users better user experience. You're going to get better security, but at the same time, saving a lot of money on all those point products. And if you can do this, this is really special when you can have all three of those. So something I want to just talk about that is just recently we've released is Private Service Edge. And we need to talk a little bit about the architecture here of how we built the cloud and why we built Private Service Edge. And this also comes back to the speed of light. So let's look. So you have a lot of destinations like the internet, and you have your SASE applications, and you have infrastructure as a service. That's your destination. That's all your applications. At the bottom, you have all your users. And I did put the data center down here as well. But you have all your users no matter where they are and where they're coming from. And what we did at Zscaler is we purposely built this platform from scratch, purposely built it for a SASE architecture. And what we did is we strategically placed these data centers around the world as close as possible to your destination, Microsoft Office 365. We pair with Google and everyone to make sure we can hand off that traffic as fast as possible to those destinations. That's what we call the public service edge. So you can see down the bottom, we have the green arrows. This is our ZIA traffic that we're securing traffic towards the internet. And you can see the orange lines, which is the traffic we secure for private applications. So you can see that somebody's on an airplane. Not many people on those at the moment, but if there was, they would be able to access through our cloud back to the on-prem data center. You can also see they can also access other applications that could be in an infrastructure as a service by placing the small lightweight application connector in those networks that does that outbound connection to our cloud. So what did we introduce? Just a few weeks ago, we introduced Private Service Edge. And I think it's exciting because what we're able to do with this technology is we're able to move part of our cloud into your own data center or into your own cloud instance or into the factory. And there are many user cases where we need to think about Do I want to send all my traffic, if I'm sitting in the corporate office, do I want to send all that traffic back out to Zscaler's cloud to come back down the internet into the enterprise? And maybe that doesn't make sense. Of course, speed of light is important and latency, so we need to make sure we have the fastest path. And this platform was designed to calculate every time you access an application, the fastest path to that application. We create that microtunnel all the way from the user towards the application every time you access it. So what we can do now is we can do that using the private service edge, which means that the user and the applications can be in the same location, and we can bring down this private broker, if you want to call it, it's private service edge that does the connectivity. And something to note here, there's a dotted line, a black dotted line. This is the control plane. You still get all the stuff from our cloud where we consume the identity. We have the policy that follows that user and follows that application. So you still get of this. We just move the data plane closer to where you are. So you need to go and look at your architecture and think, am I doing this in the best way? But also, am I really secure in the way I'm doing it? I talked about SSL and sandboxing, which are really important. We've had a really bad year this year with security attacks, with the attack surface, with ransomware attacks happening daily. And there's some really simple things that you can focus on to prevent these. And really these are around, firstly, doing SSL inspection at scale. That's important. Doing advanced sandboxing, where you get that file, throw it into a sandbox, detonate it, and make sure it's okay. And that's really around the internet threat exposure. So you can go and test this on your client today for free. We do it in the browser. There's no risk to you or your company or your PC. And you can get a result of how well you are really protected. So I'd encourage you to do that. The other part that is very important at the moment is the attack surface. We have increased the attack surface due to lockdown. VPN concentrator is an attack surface, and we need to ensure that we reduce the attack surface using these new technologies. What we can do for you is you can put your domain name in, we can collect data from the internet and show what is your exposure, what is your attack surface for your company, and give you some tips on maybe trying to reduce that and making sure that you don't have that remote desktop open that the next ransomware gang will use to get access and a foothold on your network. So thank you for listening today, and I hope you learned something here, and I hope you come and talk to me or one of my colleagues. You can email me at tony@zscaler.com, or you can connect with me on LinkedIn, but I'm looking forward to talking with you. So thanks for your time.